Our office was in Kyrie's parents' house, deep in the slums. Although when I came to work for the company, only Grandma Mirio was still there. Her parents picked the wrong person's pocket one day and ended up dead. Apparently, it sounded like it was pretty brutal, too, the way it went down. But Grandma Mirio was the only one who told me the story, so I wasn't sure how much to believe. Grandma Mirio wasn't around anymore either. She caught a bad cold and never recovered. Left all alone in the world, Kyrie was depressed for a while. But then she put aside her grief and turned the old family home into an office. Fabio and I, along with a bunch of Leslie's pals, collected the materials and carried out the renovations under Kyrie's direction. When clients came to the office, the first thing they saw was the impressive slab of ebony that served as a table. The legs were just steel rods salvaged from somewhere in the slums, so we'd wrapped them in black cloth. The table was covered with an assortment of trinkets to create the proper milieu for a woman who could speak to the live stream. Stage props, such as worm-eaten books, wands that could be magic, hand mirrors, a few old landscape photos on the back wall, and an eerie painting of a twisted, jagged mountain hung between fluttering black curtains. Better lighting would reveal the collection of junk for what it was. But when Kyrie sat down in the hooded black robe in the dim light, heck, even I started to think she had mystical powers. "I'll get changed," said Kyrie as she retreated to the back room. I settled down on the round three-legged stool by the door, my usual perch. Soon she was back in the office, robed and shoeless. She always worked barefoot in order to better feel the flow of the life stream beneath the earth, or so she told the clients. "He should be here any minute. Stay sharp, okay?" I nodded and opened my satchel, preparing to take notes. "The bruise is getting darker," she said, pointing at my eye. "It didn't hurt much now, but I put on a bit of face paint. I put on a bit of a paint face anyway." We were interrupted by a knock on the door. I got up to let in an old man with a receding hairline. He must have been about 70, but he stood ramrod straight and just about the same height as me. So not exactly doddering, but not a big guy, like that bald Turk either. So that was good. He held a dark yellow paper bag, and his charcoal gray suit was old but well made. Seemed like he had he had his shit together and took good care of his stuff. Maybe we could hope for a decent payout. "Would you be Mr. Arade?" "That's right, Tyran Arade, and you are?" "Kyrie Canaan," she said, in a low register she used for work. Mr. Arade, please make yourself comfortable." She waved a hand at the low two-seater sofa facing the table. "Thank you." Mr. Arade looked frailer when he was sitting, with slumped shoulders and a bowed back. "The man behind you is my archivist, Evan. Please pay him no mind." Mr. Arade twisted the glance at me and I nodded. Evan the archivist. I appreciated the dignified title. "Welcome, Mr. Arade," I said softly. Quiet was essential to the mystical ambience. "I'm finding all this a little unsettling," said Mr. Arade. "That is good. Your tension is an anomaly that will draw the lifestream nearer," Kyrie told him. Every word was bullshit. "Let's begin. Please tell me your story." He took something from his breast pocket. It looked to be a photograph. "I want to show you this." Kyrie reached across the table to take it. "The man on the far right of the front row is my son, Gold. Gold Arde. Gold Arde." This name created a rhythm in my head. "The one with the longish hair?" said Kyrie. "Yes, I was always on him to keep it short." "Is this who you want me to find? Your son?" "Yes, precisely." Mr. Arade leaned in. "Do you feel anything?" Gazing at the picture, Kyrie lifted one hand to head off further questions. "I will need time. 10 days. Will that be acceptable?" "Oh, I had thought it would be quicker." "The course of the life stream, as you know, is constantly shifting beneath us. It will take some time for me to contact the memories connected to your son. If that is not what you'd hoped for, no, it's fine, said Mr. Arde. If that's how it works, I can wait. I don't know anything about your methods. Well, to be honest, I don't believe in any of it. Kyrie remained perfectly calm. Then, why have you come to see me? I've tried everything else. Once I've tried this, I'll be able to make my peace. That's the real reason. I see, but I think that in the end, you will come to believe in the power of the life stream. Tell me, did your son disappear on that day, that fateful night when the life stream destroyed Meteor? Kyrie was really going all in on the life stream bunk. I thought it might be overkill with this skeptical client. No, before that, he was a part of the Shinra military. A member of Soldier, to be exact. But only second class, said Mr. Arde. He sent word that he might be going away on a special mission, but I never heard from him again. The photo arrived later, after the fateful night, as you put it. I wouldn't have been home to receive it, except I was stuck in Midgar with a sprained ankle. I'd wanted to get out of the city, you see. If it wasn't for that injury, I wouldn't have had any clue at all about my son. I thought perhaps it was fate, maybe even an omen, the old man sighed. I've been looking for him ever since. Where was the photo taken? I've been asking people that for 2 years, and I still don't know. Mr. Arde's back was bent even more now, his eyes downcast. Kyrie held out the photo toward me, so I stood up to reach over the sofa to take it. The front row on the right. I could pick out Golde Arade right away in his soldier uniform. When I was a kid, everyone was crazy over Shinra's elite military unit. I went through that phase myself, but not many kids actually tried to join when they grew up, probably because by then they'd all heard the creepy rumors. People said the candidates would get injections of who knows what, and be dunked in tanks of Mako for days at a time, all to give them powers that humans probably shouldn't have anyway. How did the picture reach you? Kyrie asked. The world was in chaos at that time. I had been wondering that myself. I put the photo in my lap and focused on the back of Mr. Arade's head. One night, someone knocked on my door, he replied. My son would never wait for my permission to come into his own home, and everyone I knew had already left Midgar, so I didn't answer. That's understandable. It was rather late, and I just went to sleep. In the morning, though, I couldn't get it out of my mind. I opened the door just to check, you see, and I saw a man there on the ground. He was tall, dressed in a motorbike jacket, and he had black slime coming from his ears and mouth. I now know it was the stigma, but back then, I'd never seen anything like it. I tell you, a chill went down my spine. But then, he twitched, and I thought I heard him mumble my son's name. I couldn't just leave him, so I took him inside. Mr. Arade paused for a moment, reliving the event. But he died not half-hour later. I asked him questions the whole time. I just wanted to know about my son. But he didn't even seem to understand me. I never got an answer. I searched his things so I could at least find out who he was. But all he had on him were 10 or so copies of that group photograph, and a number of other photos too. Family shots, for the most part. When I saw them, well, I can't even begin to tell you how sorry I was. That man came to tell me where my son was, and I just know it. I didn't open the door. He ended his story there. Should have done this, could have done that. If you think about the choices you didn't make, your whole life becomes a string of regrets. I've got a mountain of those. I knew on a visceral level that what Mr. Arade was feeling. Mr. Arade, I understand the nature of your request, but I must tell you something. I must tell you that searching for a former member of Soldier presents additional challenges, and I am going to need even more time than I initially said. Will that be a problem? I suppose not, but what do you mean by challenges? Members of Soldier are more susceptible to the Lifestream's influence, and if your son was one, it's likely his friends were as well. So you see, if his Soldier colleagues are now among the dead. Lie after lie, I glanced over to see if Mr. Arade was still even listening, then studied the picture again. 50 men and women stood in front of an old-fashioned mansion. You wouldn't find an enormous stone facade like that in Midgar. The people were in their early 20s, with a few middle-aged faces scattered amongst them. It looked like a bunch of locals, and a unit of soldier assigned to wherever village it was. Out of all of them, only 2 were smiling, Gold Arade and the other. Weird group photo, if you ask me. I do hope that you can find him. The old man got to his feet. Mr. Arade, my voice cracked. He and Kyrie both stared at me. Oh, forgive me. The deposit, Mr. Arade nodded and handed the paper bag to Kyrie. I confess I took this from the company right after my son made it to soldier. It was wrong, I know, but it hardly matters anymore, does it? You'll also find my contact information in the bag. I look forward to hearing from you. Wait, Mr. Arade, I said. Do you know the name of the man who brought that photo to you? Yes, he replied. Look on the back. I flipped the photo, and I saw a man's name and phone number written there. I tried the number, but it was disconnected. Of course, by then most Midgar numbers were. You said he had other photos, too. Yes, of men and women, young and old, probably the families of the people in that group photo. The photos had all the same name and phone number on the back. It's only speculation, but I suspect he was trying to reunite them, despite his illness. Do you have those other photos? I interrupted him. I pinned them up on the notice board at the station in case they might help someone else. Although that was 2 years ago now, I can't imagine they're still there. With a helpless shake of his head, Mr. Arade left. Oh wow, Evan, guess what he gave us? Kyrie crowed. Materia, 2 of them. Maybe he'll give us more if we solve this case. Kyrie. They used to sell materia in shops. I never thought to check the prices though. I wonder how much these 2 are worth. Do you think we should go to the station? What now? Yeah, to check out the notice board. And look for the photos that were pinned there 2 years ago? They'll be long gone. The materia had captured Kyrie's full attention, though. Yeah, probably, I admitted. Hey, you know, soldier members and this stuff to fight. Soldier member use this stuff to fight. With enough practice, you can basically do magic with it, right? I'm going home. Huh? Don't you want to get something to eat? Finally, she tore her eyes away from the materia and started paying attention to me. Nah, I gotta bail. Actually, I don't feel that great. Are you okay? Is it your eye? Did the Turks hit you anywhere else? Now worried, she was examining my face. I don't think so. I probably just need to catch some Z's, I told her. Keeping eye contact took some effort. Wait a minute, let me change out of this getup and walk back with you. She ducked into the back room. As soon as she did, I scribbled a note on the memo pad on the desk. 7th Heaven tomorrow, same time. I was out of there before she came out again. I still didn't know my way around the slums. I knew I'd get lost if I tried to take the shortcut, and yet I just had to prove it to myself by guessing at the turns until I had no damn clue where I was. By the time I reached the station, both hands on the pillar clock were pointing straight up. I jogged to the notice board near the platform, one of many around the city. It was papered with a mess of notes, from unreadable, weather-beaten scraps to fresh memos that might be only hours old. I looked for the photos Tyrone Arade said he had left. I knew it was a long shot, but nevertheless, I had to make sure. Of course they weren't there, and even though I'd expected as much, it was still a letdown. One more blow in an already frustrating day. I kicked the post and a single note fell from the board and drifted to my feet. My eyes landed on the childish scrawl. Dear Mom and Dad, I'm at Grandma Liz's house, Sadie. I went to stick it back on the board again, but I couldn't see a spare pin. I took down something that looked like a commercial flyer, shoved it into my pocket, and used that pin to put little Sadie's note back into place. 7. Fabio gets shot. Elena's gloves were smeared with blood from Fabio Braun's nose. She took them off, walked over to the bed where his little brother huddled in terror, and wiped them clean on the loud green sheets. On the floor, Fabio clutched his belly and groaned. He jerked spasmodically as blood trickled from the edge of his mouth. You don't play fair, Elena muttered. She paid visit intending to break Fabio's dominant arm, but when she saw him fight back to protect the child, she changed her plan. Her objective was to punish a thief, not deprive a child with geostigma of his only guardian. She'd been expecting some small-time hoodlum scheming to pawn off stolen goods, but that's not who she found. Thieves were supposed to give you sly smiles and excuses or unload on you for catching them, but this one had reasons, and that was cheating. It wasn't fair. Elena grabbed the blister pack of tablets and started to leave, but after a moment of indecision, she tossed the drug at the boy. The stuff stops working if you build up a tolerance, so only use it when the pain is really bad. A child your age could take just a quarter tablet at a time. Any more and you'll get addicted. 8. A wild night. I stashed my bag in its usual spot, hung up the hat and jacket, and traded my boots for slippers. I noticed I'd scratched one of the toes, probably when I kicked the post. Serves me right. I could buff it out with a little oil. But who had the energy for that? I collapsed onto the bed. What a day. I closed my eyes and hoped for sleep, but it didn't come. I drew in a huge breath and let it out slowly as I looked around. My room was just as I'd left it this morning, stuff everywhere, glowing paint on the floor. I should clean up, one bit of mess at a time, right? If I'd learned anything since leaving Midgar, it was don't put stuff off. I rolled out of bed and started seeing what was intact. Nothing looked beyond repair. Washing and wiping. I put back each of my belongings. Keeping things tidy was an old habit of mine. I could almost hear my mom praising me for the things being such a helpful son. I went to the bed and reached under the thin mattress for the picture of her, one of the few mementos I'd brought back with me from Midgar. What are you doing now, Mom? Evan, someone called from outside, tiny and faint, as if in reply. That you, Bits? Door's unlocked. He didn't answer. What was the kid doing here at this late at night? It made me nervous. Something wasn't right. I went to the door and opened it, and it was Bits all right. He looked up at me and collapsed on the spot. I scooped him up, pronto. Damn, he was light. Ow, ow, it hurts, Evan. Okay, don't worry. I set him down on my bed. Where does it hurt? My back, Bits gasped. Carefully, I rolled him over onto his stomach and started a gentle back rub. Fabio had told me sometimes that he would sit up at night doing this. It didn't help much, he said, but there was nothing else he could do. Where was Fabio anyway? He must still have some medicine. Why hadn't he given it to his brother? I told Bits I'd be right back and dashed over to the open green door of their house. Fabio was lying in a puddle of blood. I jumped right out of the room and stood there in horror. I tried to go in again but hesitated. What was the right choice here? I want to lie down on my bed. Then I'll fall asleep, and I'll wake up and all this will have been a bad dream. It took me a full minute before I screamed, Fabio's dead! 9. Self-absorbed. I got exactly 0 sleep the entire night. But when morning came, I went to 7th heaven all the same. Kyrie and Leslie were out front. She wouldn't meet my gaze, still pissed off for me ditching her last night, most likely. No seats, said Leslie. We can go to that cafe down the road. Well, it's more empty lot than cafe, but there is coffee. That's fine, I murmured. We started walking. Where's Fabio? He's not gonna make it today, I said. He's been hurt. Like, nearly dead hurt. What? They both stopped short to look at me. What happened? Said Kyrie. I'll tell you, but I need to sit down first. I didn't get any sleep. Let's get to this empty lot and get that coffee. Johnny's Heaven was the name of the place. I'd walked by plenty of times, but never dropped in myself. Tables and chairs laid out on the barren ground didn't give you high hopes for the beverage selection. The owner had his hair slicked back in a pompadour, an unusual style these days. He introduced himself as Johnny, and then asked us our names. Why does he want to know our names? What kind of place is this? Leslie ignored the question and ordered 3 coffees. The silence stretched on as I tried to think of where to begin with what happened last night. Before I could get started, Johnny was back with our coffee. Let me guess, love triangle? You two are fighting over her, and the sparks are flying. Yeah, it happens, but in a few years you'll look back. Time doesn't fix anything, I broke in. Johnny furrowed his brow. What do you mean? Every day brings its own troubles, so you just bury the ones in the back of your mind. You think you're over and done with, but then something drags them out again, and nothing gets better. You must be fun at parties. All right, I won't tell you what to be. You're still young. So go have a good talk and enjoy your coffee and hug it out. He stood there grinning over us. Listen, Johnny, we're kind of in the middle of something important, said Kyrie. No time for chat, eh? Not even a heartwarming antidote? We left a question hanging. Johnny looked from Kyrie to me for support. We're good, thanks, I said. Apparently, he needed to hear it twice. At last, Johnny retreated to his cart. Okay, Evan, spill it, Kyrie prompted. Bits came to my place in the middle of the night, I said. He said his stigma was acting up and then just collapsed. I wondered what the hell Fabio was doing. I mean, they couldn't have used up the medicine already, so I went to see and I found him on the floor in a pool of his own blood. Alive? I wasn't sure. I got help. Headman Doyle, Tico, and his wife from next door, and some other folk. The headman checked Fabio out and said it's okay, he's still alive. And he went to find the doctor. But this is where things get messed up. When I left Fabio with Q and went to get the medication from the other room, I paused there for a sip of coffee. It was bitter stuff that stung the cuts inside my mouth. Even as I ran through the story, I realized there were some parts I couldn't tell. Like, for example, the fact that I'd used the medicine for Bits as an excuse to get out of there. I was too afraid to be near Fabio, afraid to see him die. The stuff was on the bed, but when I came in, I caught Tico trying to take it. I told him it was for Bits, and he wouldn't give up. He wouldn't give it up. So then, I went in... then I was in another fist fight, but Tico is a big, older guy. He's done manual labor all his life, I shrugged. The truth was, Tico had only been looking at the drug in curiosity. I just wanted to grab it and get out, probably because I felt so guilty for running away from Fabio. So I didn't say anything, and I just yanked it out of Tico's hand. Not the best way of handling it, especially with a guy with a chip on his shoulder. The hell's your problem, kid? He said and took a swing at me. All I did was close my eyes and wave my fists around. We both landed blows, but I was the one who went down. Tico jumped on me, and I shielded myself best I could. He still got me a few more times. Soon enough, Q and Tico's wife came in to pull him off. She apologized to me, and that was that. Q was pissed, though, wondering if I was really Fabio's friend at all. Well, just look. I prodded my bruised cheek with my tongue in lieu of pointing. Listen, Evan, I'm sure that was rough, but you said Fabio was in bad shape, said Leslie. We need to hear about him. Bits, too. I'm getting there. I don't know what you're feeling guilty about, but nobody cares how many shots to the face you took. Leslie was ruthless. He knew exactly what I was up to. I couldn't say anything. Anyway, tell us about Fabio, Kyrie said. I would have liked to think she was throwing me a line to help me out of my pit of self-loathing, but she was just concerned about Fabio, obviously. Dr. Drake arrived soon after. Turns out he'll live. He looks terrible, all black and blue, but no broken bones, and he was already walking around this morning. Well, more like hobbling, but up and about. Bits got his medicine and slept until morning, and when he woke up, he said it didn't hurt anymore. The medicine must have worn off by then, but they say the geostigma pain comes and goes. From the time when they pulled Tico off of me until I left this morning, I'd been rubbing Bits' back. Not for his sake, but for my own. It was a psychological self-defense, an attempt to assuage my guilt. So, Fabio isn't nearly dead? Asked Leslie. No. Then don't make it sound that way. Yeah, sorry. Silence settled over us for a bit. Leslie, as usual, got back on topic. Do we know who did it? I made myself answer like this was some business as usual. Yeah, Fabio said it was another Turk, a young woman. So now it's done and dusted. Fabio's paid his debt, and he's in the black. The Turks who messed you up the first time, though, thought you were him. And another one came to correct that mistake. I guess so. This lady Turk sounds scary, Kyrie remarked. Seriously. I agreed, although Bits said she also told him the proper dosage. Kids would only take a quarter tablet, she said. Well, that's weird, Kyrie cocked her head. She told him that after beating up Fabio? Brutality is all in a day's work for the Turks, Leslie said decisively. She found out why Fabio stole the medicine and then felt sorry for Bits. But the punishment was still due. You should be glad she wasn't the only one to visit you yesterday. She wasn't the one that visited you yesterday. He smirked at me, then stood up. Where are you going? To see Fabio. Want to come along, Kyrie? You can tell me about the new case. Sure, said Kyrie. What about you, Evan? I think I need a refill. I wasn't ready to go back to Doylesville and Kyo and Tico. Sorry, I was short with you, Evan, said Leslie. Well, you weren't wrong. My mouth twitched in the semblance of a grin. Apparently, that was enough for Leslie, and he walked away. Meet me at the office, Kyrie said, lowering her voice to me. I'm still mad about yesterday, you taking off without me while I was changing. But I can tell something's going on with you. I want to hear it later, okay? She chased after Leslie before I could reply. She was wearing her sleeveless leather jacket and black miniskirt, her best-looking ensemble, in my opinion. I was startled it took me this long to notice. I really had been thinking only about myself all day. Actually, not just today. It happened a lot. For a while now, after the other two left, I sat staring into the distance. Johnny kept sliding up to drag me into conversation. I'd pointedly ignore him, but he would not give up. So, anyway, let me tell you my favorite story about Tifa, mistress of my heart. She runs Seventh Heaven. Hey, I bet you know her. She made it from a backwater hamlet called Nibelheim all the way to Midgar. Johnny theatrically indicated the metal metropolis to the slums, not the plate, for Sector 7. Now, back in the day, you might have called me the boss of that neighborhood. Kind of a big name, so I've got my eye on this country girl. Johnny's story about Tifa was largely about himself. Just like mine before, I can't take any more of this. Time to go. Aw, you're taking off? He said. Yeah, have a good day. Well, do what you gotta, but come back anytime. Johnny's a friend to all the troubled kids. Who said I'm troubled? Every man's got troubles. He clapped me on the shoulder like we were now pals or something. But you're a lucky one. That girl cares about you. What do you know? I snapped. I've got a sixth sense about this kind of thing, and it's never wrong. About anyone else, at least. Johnny laughed, uproariously, as if he'd struck comedy gold. I looked up at the sunlight that stung my eyes. I closed them. It hurt to open them again. I hadn't slept in over 24 hours. This whole incident had taken a toll on me mentally and physically. I need a break. I need sleep. 10. Unshakable connections. For a few good seconds after I woke up, I had no idea where I was. All I could see was the mural on the ceiling, a clumsy rendition of the sea and sky in a sandy beach. It wasn't even finished. Either the artist had run out of blue paint or his arm got tired, and he just left. The single window was hidden behind the dark black curtains. I looked at my legs stretched out on the bed and saw several colorful garments laying across my boots. A pile of laundry must have fallen on top of me. To my left, there was a white wall covered with posters of Costa del Sol. On the right was a built-in shelving installed by Fabio and myself, but the space was so crammed with clothes that the overflow hid the shelves entirely. I doubted even the girl who created this mess knew what was there. I sat up and noticed a wicker basket on the floor, also filled with clothes. Orange shorts, a yellow raglan shirt, a white blouse embroidered with birds in flight, black jeans, a light gray dress. I'd seen all of them before. "What you think? Looks good to me," we said the same thing countless times in the market, and I could hear that conversation again in my head. I looked around. I was in the back of the office, Kyrie's living space, affectionately known as the dumpster. For a neat freak like me, this place was like nails on a chalkboard. I heard the office door opening and jumped to my bed. Impatient footsteps followed, and then the door to this room quietly opened. Kyrie poked her head in. "Hey," I greeted her. "Feeling better?" "Yeah." "Good," she said, although I could tell from the expression that she was not as relieved as she sounded. "Did you carry me into here?" "Thanks." I'd walked all the way to the office, then realized I didn't have the spare key. Without any better ideas, I sat down on the doorstep and must have eventually fallen asleep. "What happened to you? You gave me a scare, you know," she complained. "I didn't get any sleep last night with all that shit that was going down. It was like you were unconscious, not just asleep. I shook you and poked you, and you still wouldn't wake up." "That right. Sorry." "Are you really okay now?" "Oh yeah, totally recharged." Kyrie nodded without even a hint of a smile and casually pulled a satin flared skirt from the wall of clothes. She held it up to her waist and flung it onto the bed. Then went to another shelf and plucked out a black skirt with lots of detailing. She looked at it for a moment and tossed that onto the bed as well. So she did know where everything was. Impressive. Finally, she fished out the black pair of jeans from the wicker basket. "Maybe I'd better go with these," considering. Her eyes scanned the wall again. And then she carefully pulled out a sleeveless top with a tiny blue floral pattern. "Will this be warm enough?" "Warm enough? It depends. Where are we going?" "I'll explain after I change. Give me a minute. And make sure the office door is closed, okay?" Kyrie's intensity was making me nervous. "Is something up? Are we in trouble?" "Probably." I opened my mouth to ask more questions, but she glared at me and reached for the band of the skirt around her waist. I hustled myself out of the room. My shoulder bag was on the office sofa. I shrugged it on and sat down to wait. "Okay, here's the deal," she started talking the moment she emerged in her chosen outfit. "When I got here, I found you out cold on the doorstep. I shook you and yelled at you, and you wouldn't wake up. You can imagine how freaked out I was, right? So I dragged you into this office. But then I remembered that you're not supposed to move someone who's unresponsive. You didn't need to make such a big deal about it." "Yeah, I wouldn't have, if it wasn't for the fact that everything else has been going on. So I just thought that I'd better get a doctor, like Dr. Drake." Dr. Drake's practice was pretty far from the slums, all the way out near Dolesville. "Fabio said he trusted the guy," Kyrie went on. "And the doctors in the slums, you never know if they're total quacks or not. I couldn't risk letting one of them mess you up even more, so I started to book it over there." This was turning into quite a story, but I couldn't tell where it was going. I got all the way back to the square, and there were the Turks. She gave me a look. "The redhead and the bald one?" Kyrie nodded. "I figured these guys must have phones, so I asked them to call Dr. Drake. Evan's in a bad way, 'cause you guys beat him up," I told them. And guess what? They said they don't know any Evan, so I lost it and said, "Yeah, 'cause Evan's the one you wailed on when you mixed him up with Fabio. You owe him." Whoa. So then the redhead, his name's Reno, he called the doctor. "Not Dr. Drake," he said, "but a good one." And then, everyone came here. "Wait, you brought the Turks here?" "Yeah, the thing is, Evan, they already knew about us. About our business, I don't know how. Maybe because they were looking into Fabio's deal?" "Yeah, except they didn't know that Fabio worked here." "That's weird." Creepy, even. "So then what happened?" "The doctor poked at you for like a minute and said you were just sleeping like a log. And that all you needed was more rest. He said any medicine would be wasted on you, and then walked out. Sorry for the trouble, I said, but he's right, I'm fine now. And we gotta find out how and why the Turks know about us, because that is weird. There's more, Kyrie shook her head, then went to crack open the door and to peek outside. Look! She waved me over and hunkered down to let me see. I put my right eye to the doorframe. It was the middle of the night, and the only light that came from there was candles in the other houses. But as my vision adjusted, I could just make out the bald head in the dark about 30 yards away. It made me recall the freakishly strong full Nelson. By some quirk of memory, the bruises I got from Reno and Tico burned. That one's called Rude, said Kyrie from below me. He's gonna take us to the car. The car? I told you, we're going for a drive. They said we'll be back by the morning. When did she say anything about a drive? Never mind. I seriously did not like where this was going, but I kept myself as calm as possible. And why are we doing this? Because they invited us. And you said yes. Uh-huh. I backed away from the door. Kyrie. She was still watching Rude, but then she shut the door and reluctantly stood up. She didn't even look at me. What possessed you to do that? I was scared, she murmured weakly. And then she was shouting. I was scared, okay? I was just trying to help you, and I didn't think about anything else. But then it turned out you were fine, and when I got myself together, I realized what a stupid thing I'd done. I asked for help from the last people anyone would want help from. They can smile real sweet and act nice, but they're not normal. You can see what they've done in their eyes. They have blood on their hands. And when I thought about that, I just... Kyrie. The two of them plopped down on the sofa and asked me to come with them. I wasn't sure they would leave unless I said yes, so I said I'd go with you if I said I'd go if you could come. And then they said yeah. And then they met both of us. I put a heck of a lot of effort into keeping my expression neutral. I get it. They are intimidating. Yeah. We'll be okay. I'll think of something. Really? Kyrie said with a supplicating look that was rare for her. Now it was up to me. Trial by fire. Yeah, I got this. Where could the Turks possibly want to take us? Trying to piece that together would be a waste of time. We had basically no information, but I was pretty sure that they weren't looking to kill us. After all, they were trying to win hearts and minds, right? Murder would be counterproductive for them. Really, though, think about it. The most dangerous one that was probably that lady Turk who went after Fabio. A close second would be the slab of muscle out there, Rude. Maybe the redhead Reno was more on our level. I thought back to my first impression of him. The grown-up teenage delinquent. Guys like that generally looked out for their own. A sense of solidarity. There had to be an angle I could work with him. Is Reno coming too? I asked. Yeah, it'll be all four of us. Okay. We'd focus on Reno. If Kyrie and I could get him on our side, nothing too bad could happen. But if we skipped out on them now, that avenue would be closed. Okay, mind made up. Are you going to take us out of the city to kill us? Kyrie asked, sounding scared now. Are they going to take us out of the city to kill us? And already my resolve began to waver. I don't see why they would. They don't have any reason. But what do they want from us? We have no idea what they're after. Yeah, but... Evan, I'm scared. She put her hand on mine. Okay, fine. We'll make a run for it. Buy ourselves some time at least. I was startled to hear myself say it. I thought I'd already made up my mind. You sure? Kyrie looked surprised, too, then turned to the door. Okay, let's go. She sprang to her feet and then swiped her backpack off the ebony table. The military issue, heavy mustard yellow canvas, looked out of place on her slender back. But it was her go-to if she had the lot to carry. If she had it out already, She must have been preparing for something. For a trip with the Turks, or for bugging out. Here, take this. She lifted a round object from her backpack and tossed it my way. I caught it reflexively and examined the translucent, slightly pileable ball in my hand. Fabio would love the pale green. It's one of the materia we got from Mr. Arade, said Kyrie. Soldier issue. Maybe members of Soldier had a clue on how to use this, but didn't mean I did. They won't be expecting this, and Kyrie's hand was a yellow materia. When it comes down to it, they say women are stronger. Watching Kyrie now, I figured maybe they were right. She did have a magical power, the power to make me do her bidding. There was a knock at the door, slow, kind of listless sounding. Just a second, Kyrie called, then went to the corner, furthest from the door, and beckoned to me. I tottered over obediently. You open the door, Evan, and I'll jump out and catch Rude by surprise. I'll duck past him and run. He'll chase me, and then you run the other way. I know the slums. I can lose him in the back streets. Her eyes glittered. I was sure mine were blurry. Wait, let's switch, I blurted out. I mean, what kind of guy would I be if I let you take all the risks? Even as I said it, though, I remembered I didn't know my way around the slums, and she'd refused for that reason. Still, I have no other thing to offer. Okay, said Kyrie. Huh? You just run as hard as you can, and don't worry about getting lost. You'll definitely lose him. Your seconds up, said Rude, baritone from the outside. Kyrie approached the door and reached for the knob. This was it. There was no other way out. We'll meet up in the southern border of Edge, and then have a big emotional reunion with a hug and a kiss. Got it? Kyrie whispered. She gave me a knockout grin and turned to the doorknob. Rude was just turning back around toward us, the first big obstacle standing between my kiss and me. You're amazing, Evan, she said. I charged headlong onto the battlefield.